congregation. The case remains open in the court system.
And though a jury awarded the victim almost $750,000, he has yet to receive any.
Was known throughout the trial as John Doe, but now has shared his personal story with Barbara Riles.
I believe that he really was as close as I could get to God.
David.Samarzia was a child of 11 the first time his pastor took him to bed and sexually molested him. The abuse would continue for years from the man David worshipped as teacher and friend. Missouri Synod Lutheran pastor Daniel Reeb led young David to believe that what they did was all right.
He kept saying, this is okay, what we're doing, this is okay.
Years later, Pastor Reeb would tell attorneys that it was all David's fault.
I am certain that would have never happened had he not instigated it.
At first, David believed his pastor and blamed himself. He kept the awful secret. What made you, it was years later that you decided to pursue this through the courts. What made your decision for you?
Gradually, through therapy, I started to realize that, this wasn't my fault. I was a kid.
But the burden David carried was heavy. At 16, frightened, confused, and depressed, he attempted suicide.
I was very confused, very unsure of myself, and just wanted to give up.
It would be years later, after a failed marriage and an ongoing battle with alcoholism, that David would finally ask for help. With intense counseling, he eventually came to understand why he had hated himself for so long.
We are taught that the pastor is next to God. And how can a child respond or make a statement against someone who is so powerful?
For years, David kept his feelings of guilt and shame to himself, but when he heard that his former congregation was sending a group of young children to stay with Pastor Reeb at his new church, he felt compelled to come forward.
Anybody that was a parent would have done this.
To stop it
Yes.
from happening again?
Yes.
But when church officials refused to take his complaint seriously, David took his case to the courts. There, all the sordid details came out, including Reeb's abuse of several other young boys. Reeb admitted the abuse but continued to blame the child.
He asked if I engaged him. No.
Did he ever engage you in sexual contact?
Yes.
The church settled for undisclosed amounts of money with 3 other men who also brought charges against Reeb for abuse they said they suffered as children in his Duluth congregation. Reeb admitted to sleeping nude with the boys as they shared his bed.
And when these youth would stay over, they would sleep typically with you in your bed. Is that correct?
The settlements with those 3 men included gag orders, forbidding them to talk about what happened to them as children or how much money they were paid. But the settlements didn't stop David from exposing the man he once considered the closest thing to God.
He moved my hand on top of him, and I let him masturbate me.
The jury decided the abuse had cost David a lifetime of suffering, to say nothing of thousands of dollars in legal and counseling bills. They awarded him $650,000. But that was 3 years ago, and David has yet to receive the money. Barbara Riles, Channel 6 News.
The minister who admitted abusing David was never imprisoned nor asked to pay any fines or restitution.
In fact, in a shocking development, I-Team 6 has learned he has continued to take in young boys as a foster parent. And we'll take a look at that tomorrow. Admitted sexually abusing a young boy in his congregation, continues to take in little boys as a foster parent.
I-Team 6 learned this shocking information as Barbara Riles investigated why the church has refused to pay a court-ordered award for the victim. We should warn you, there are some graphic descriptions of sexual abuse in this report.
Did you place your hand upon his penis?
Yes. I didn't know that they could be considered sexual abuse at all.
This was Reverend Daniel Reeb in 1991. During legal depositions, Reeb admitted to sleeping nude with children and showering with young boys while he was a pastor at Redeemer Lutheran Church in Duluth. He also discussed several sexual encounters with this man, David.Samarzia, when he was a child.
And did you masturbate him?
Yes, and he did.
David was a member of Reeb's Bible studies and confirmation classes. Reeb was a pastor in the Duluth area from 1961 to 1979. Shortly before the civil trial for abusing David, the church gave significant amounts of money to 3 other men who claimed Reeb had abused them as children in the same congregation.
Can you talk to me a minute? This is important stuff, you know.
No, I'm sorry, sir. That was done with 4 years ago.
I-Team 6 tracked Daniel Reeb down in his home in Denver, Colorado. He says he doesn't have any foster children living with him at the moment, but admitted that he has had boys living with him as recently as a year ago.
When was the last time you had foster kids?
A year ago.
About a year ago? What was the name of the last foster kid?
I'll talk to you if you help me.
I-Team 6 discovered that in the 13 years following the sexual abuse in Duluth, Reeb provided foster care for up to 15 boys between the ages of 6 and 17, while serving congregations in Denver, Colorado, and Nassau, Bahamas. Reeb claims he never abused any of those boys.
I'm a parent to those kids and a friend. I don't engage them or involve them. I don't have them for sex.
Reeb was eligible to take in children because there were never any criminal charges filed against him. By the time David.Samarzia took his case to court, the 7-year statute of limitations had expired, making it impossible to charge Reeb criminally.
For child sexual abuse or those types of crimes, it's 7 years now.
David.Samarzia won his case with a jury ordering Redeemer Lutheran Church in Duluth to pay almost $750,000. With interest, that has grown to $807,000. But David has yet to receive any of the money as the church continues to fight payment in court.
They are using the defenses and the privileges that they have in defending a case to escape the payment of the money or to escape what we believe to be justice.
Legal experts estimate the cost of fighting this case so far at close to $1 million. That's more than the amount the jury awarded David. We asked church leaders at the Missouri Synod District Headquarters in Brainerd to talk with us, but they refused. So did the current pastor here at Redeemer and its Board of Elders. We got this message from Redeemer Senior Elder Charles Smithson.
This is Charles Smithson from Redeemer Lutheran Church. In regard to your letter about the David.Samarzia case and the questions as far as an interview, I decided that we will not, on advice of counsel, not go for any type of interview at all.
Meanwhile, David continues to suffer as the church tries to get his case thrown out of court on a technicality. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, Channel 6 News.
Many felt when Samarzia won his case of clergy sexual abuse in a Duluth court that justice had finally been served. But as the months and years pass without payment being made, many, including some in the church, are questioning whether the delays are moral and ethical. We'll explore those issues tomorrow.
Abuse by clergy, focusing more on the victim and less on preserving their image.
But in Duluth, one church continues to fight a court order to pay a child who was sexually abused by his minister. Barbara Riles joins us to continue our exclusive I-Team 6 report. Well, David, Michelle, when the minister admitted sexually molesting David.Samarzia as a child, the Northland was outraged. When a jury awarded the victim $750,000, most thought justice had been served. But David has yet to receive any money or even an apology from the church.
The Catholic Church has completely changed the way it deals with clergy sexual abuse. In 1992, new guidelines were established for handling sexual misconduct.
It's in our policy. It's very clear. As soon as allegations appear to be able to be substantiated, we will remove them immediately.
The Evangelical Lutheran Church has also moved recently to a more sympathetic approach to charges of sexual improprieties.
I think a congregation, a synod, and a church body, national body, has some responsibility, morally and ethically, to assist and help victims with their therapy.
But David.Samarzia has yet to receive that kind of support from another branch of the Lutheran Church, the Missouri Synod. That's the church where he was sexually abused as a child. Pastor Daniel Reeb, who was the minister at Redeemer Lutheran Church in Duluth for 18 years, admitted that he sexually molested David when he was a child. But still, the church has chosen to fight the district court order to pay David nearly $750,000 for his suffering.
And when he was drawn into the sick and sinful world of sexual compulsion by this minister, something was taken. He has not been treated fairly. He has not been treated well. He has, at every juncture, if they could, been treated in a way that they have attempted to re-victimize him.
This perception of mistreatment has brought one Missouri Synod Lutheran pastor to speak out strongly against his church.
We have to go that extra step, that extra mile to show David that we are sincere and that there are people here in the church who do believe in justice and fair play. And of course, that's been denied him.
Church leaders are not denying that David was sexually abused, but are fighting the court-ordered award, saying he didn't bring the charges soon enough. Church leaders in Duluth and at district headquarters in Brainerd have continually refused our requests for interviews.
I think they try to ignore it. They hope I go away.
For 2 years after Pastor Reeb admitted molesting David, he was kept on the Lutheran clergy roster and continued to preach at his church in the Bahamas. This legal deposition taken in April of 1992 suggests that the reason he was finally asked to step down was because publicity had leaked out about the abuse.
Is it your understanding that the decision to place you on this CRM status and have you leave the church here in Nassau was because of news that had surfaced surrounding this lawsuit or a related lawsuit?
Yes.
Clergy abuse expert Bev Harry says churches need to react to the abuse, not the negative publicity.
Our churches have to recognize that these things happen. We can't continue to sweep it under the rug.
David's case has bounced from the appeals court to the Supreme Court and back to the Court of Appeals with no end in sight. Meanwhile, David continues to suffer with legal bills, counseling bills, and self-doubt.
He has suffered as a result of the sexual abuse indelibly, but he's also suffering in some of the same ways because of these delays in justice delivered.
I-Team 6 has learned up to 5 people who were boys in Reeb's Duluth congregation have attempted suicide, and at least 3 others were successful in killing themselves.
Barbara, this is a very troubling report. Do you have any idea how long it could be before this issue is settled?
Well, Michelle, lawyers involved say it could be months, maybe even years. And meanwhile, David's expenses are piling up. He has to pay $2,150 every month for therapy and medication. And then on top of that, there's his legal bills.
Thanks. Good work, Barbara.
Wants to settle a lawsuit stemming from sexual abuse that happened in the 1960s. But a church spokesperson says their insurance company and their lawyers won't let them. When David Samarzia was a child, he was sexually abused by the pastor of Redeemer Lutheran Church. Former pastor Daniel Reeb admitted the abuse, and a Duluth court awarded Samarzia more than $600,000. Now the Minnesota Court of Appeals has upheld that award, but the church's attorney intends to take it all the way to the state Supreme Court. Samarzia says he just wants the case to end.
6 years that have gone by, the church and Reeb have attempted to get my case thrown out of court 6 times, and I've won each time. And now I've been told that they're going to try to attempt to appeal it again.
With interest, the court award has grown to $807,000.
This might have been the final service at the Redeemer Lutheran Church.
This is a sad day. There's no denying it.
The church may soon be forced to turn over this sanctuary and everything in it because of a lawsuit brought by a former member.
I feel sad that it had to get to this point. I wish it wouldn't have.
Come on, Nikita.
44-year-old David Samarzia sued the church in 1991 after failing to convince its leaders that he had been sexually abused as a teenager by the church's former pastor.
It was swimming, and then eventually nude swimming, and then showers and saunas, and eventually after a few years it became sexual contact.
Shelley Joe Wick was a member of the church board when Samarzia made his accusation against a minister she had loved and trusted.
When I did hear it, I told myself, I don't believe it. He did not do that. He couldn't have done that.
But then she saw this.
Reverend, would you please state your full name for the record?
Daniel August Reeb.
Their beloved pastor in a taped deposition admitting sexual contact with young David.
Did you place your hand upon his penis?
Yes.
After Pastor Reeb's admission, a Minnesota court ruled he was liable for the sexual abuse and that the Redeemer Church was to blame for doing nothing to stop it. David Samarzia was awarded $644,000.
Our Lord and our Savior, Jesus Christ.
Redeemer does not have the money, so the church could be forced to sell the sanctuary and all its contents.
It hurts right down to your soul.
Samarzia says he might be willing to settle for less if the church accepts some responsibility for his abuse.
They've never attempted to resolve this with me in any way.
Though they face losing everything, church leaders remain defiant, refusing to be blamed for the past actions of one minister.
All of these people are suffering and losing their church because of something that he did long ago.
Unless there is a settlement, the church will be sold this summer.
It's like losing my mama.
Jim Williams, ABC News, Duluth, Minnesota.
A Duluth child sexual abuse case made national headlines 4 years ago when a court awarded the victim nearly $750,000.